Good morning, everyone. My name is Ann Polsinelli, and I'm the Application Sales Manager in Canada for Oracle, representing our Toronto division. And today we're presenting to Redpath. Next slide. Just to see what kind of time delay we have. Okay, what we wanted to do, I don't know, Anne, if you wanted to say any opening remarks or any comments for the extended team at Redpath.
Mm-hmm. How about I introduce everyone that's on the call so that everyone's aware of who's joining and possibly asking any questions towards Oracle. So you've got Blair Lemke. He's the supply chain manager for Redpath. You've got Chantel Camp. She's the corporate controller for Redpath Mining Inc. You've got Peter Stefan. He's the CFO of Europe. You've got Sergio Patino, who's the CFO of the Americas region. Denise Ryu, who's the financial controller for the Americas region. You got Sudhir Anand, who's the digital transformation project manager, and then you've got Lisa Vetro, whom you've met. Torsten Kahn will be joining us about 5 to 10 minutes. He is running a bit late, but he will join the call in about 10 minutes.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for the introductions, and to the extended Redpath team, welcome and thank you for making the time to speak with us today. Just wanted to talk about our agenda. Our plan is to go from 8 to 10, and we're going to spend just a couple minutes on the background, a little bit about Oracle, and maybe not everyone on the call is familiar with who we are, and also set the stage with our partner Hitachi. And they bring both differentiating experience in your industry as well as technology solutions. Then we're going to jump right in. We want to get to the actual product, and Dave Messina is going to address all of the functional areas that Redpath has asked us to cover. So Dave is going to cover purchase orders, AP, what we call automated invoice processing, payment execution, employee expenses, and reporting. So a pretty full agenda. We're going to spend about 15 minutes in each area, and then Hitachi is going to talk about the overall solution and their what we call procurement services differentiator. And hopefully we'll be on time, on budget, and finish at 10 o'clock. Next slide. Just wanted to...
And sorry to interrupt, but just kind of a legal note, we have been requested to record this session. So anyone from Oracle or Redpath, if you have any concern, let us know. Thank you.
Thanks, Mukul. Yes, Anne had asked us to record the session this morning. Just a couple of quick comments about Oracle. I don't know if everybody knows who we are or what we do. We're close to, very close to about a $40 billion organization. We have operations and customers in 175 countries. One of the things that I think differentiates us is our follow the sun tech support, both for our on-prem and our cloud products. And we deliver those solutions in 29 languages. We actually use ourselves the products we're going to show you today. We have just closed our third quarter. Oracle, even at this stage in our life cycle, I've been with Oracle for 25 years now, and even at this stage in our organization, we're continuing to post quite incredible growth figures. And our line of business, the group that I'm in, is what we call Cloud ERP. That's the broad category that includes all of the functionality that we've been asked to present to you today. So we use those terms interchangeably. One of the things that differentiates us, as I said, is our investment in R&D, and all of our products that we've talked about today are available in 30 odd languages. And we thought that that is something we just wanted to highlight in some of the questions that you had asked us earlier. Next slide. The Gartner Group has evaluated Oracle, and for the fourth year in a row, Gartner has rated this I'm going to show you today, the Oracle ERP Cloud, as number one, far and away in this category. Next slide. We're just going to talk a little bit about my last slide in the introduction, is about what that means to you, why you should care about scalability, innovation, research, and investment, because it ultimately results in quite exceptional product. What we think are, in fact, transformational business processes. In the expense area, just as an example, it's mobile, it's available on all platforms, whether that's an Android device, all the operating systems, iPad as well as laptop. But as well as the sort of operating systems, it's also available with great new technologies, integrated chat, machine learning, what we call a digital assistance. But one overarching comment we wanted to make was the message about our single platform. For all of the solutions that were requested in the procure to pay business processes spreadsheet, in all of those processes, purchasing, AP, etc., they are at what we call a single platform. We think that that stands apart from some of the solutions that you're looking at. One of the things that it does is provide a unified model, a security model that transcends and in fact is unified. The user ID and passwords, you won't have 2, 3, 4 different ones. In fact, it's one that is shared, and that model is with all the applications. Also, a shared workflow, a shared user interface, and the same reporting technology. You'll see what we call our dashboards or infolets, and in fact, they are shared amongst all of the solutions that we have in Cloud ERP. Without further ado, next slide. I'd like to introduce very quickly our overall team. They will introduce themselves as they go through the presentation, but we have a number of technical resources on the team. If we have any questions, we have a full breadth of participants. The vast majority of the content, as I said, will be delivered by Dave Messina, but also Dave Reeves, Mukul, and Ajay from the Hitachi team. They will be presenting in their section. Next slide. I'd like to now introduce Phil Allen. Phil will cover some of our differentiators with our partner Hitachi. Phil?
Great, thank you, Anne. Thanks, Redpath team, for joining us this morning. My name is Philip Allen. I'm the Regional Sales Director with Hitachi. And the reason why Anne's asked us to be part of this demo is really because of a few reasons. One, we're a long-standing 22-year old partner of Oracle, but also we specifically understand your industry. As a global technology leader, we've been in your space, construction, mining, engineering space for a long time ourselves. And you can see on this slide here, we've got a picture of some really neat construction equipment that we actually make and we supply to different industries. But I think one neat number to point out there is the 30 plus companies that Hitachi actually owns and runs that are in the engineering and construction space that provide services, tools, equipment, all of that type of stuff to your specific industry. And I think that gives us a really neat perspective and understanding of specifically your procurement needs, those complex services procurement needs. And that's one of the reasons why Ann brought us to the table as well. We've really put in a lot of R&D and created our own kind of extension or accelerator, if you will, that's very specific to your industry, which just enhances Oracle's procurement solution. Next slide. Here we go. And so this slide is just going to give a little bit more of an overview on our Oracle expertise specifically. So as I mentioned, we've been an Oracle partner for over 22 years. We've shared over 100 common customers globally. So we are a global partner. We've deployed in over 70 countries around the world. So we understand all the nuances and intricacies that come with, different governments, different languages, different regulations. That's something that's not new to us. We've done it many times. We've won dozens of accolades and awards over the years in partnering with Oracle. And over that time, we've actually completed over 2,100 Oracle projects. Over 100 of those are in the Oracle Cloud space, and we've got over 1,200 Oracle consultants globally. And those are located in all different parts of the world. And clearly, we've seen the subset of countries that Redpath is in, and we're excited to take part in those countries. We have consultants on the ground in those locations. One more neat number to point out here is on the bottom there. It's kind of small, but you can see 90% of customers that we work with actually contract with us additionally for more services after the original deployment. And I think that really speaks to the level of expertise we bring, the level of commitment and the value that we bring to our projects when we work with our customers. On the bottom right there, just a small subset of our customers in the Oracle space. Some of those you'll recognize, they're in Canada. That's why we put them there. Others are JD Edwards customers, Sage customers, just to give you a flavor and understanding that we do know your solutions you have right now. And clearly we've done integrations and worked with those type of solutions for a long time. We've had a JD Edwards practice for over 10 years. We've worked with many JD Edwards customers and integrated with all different third-party solutions along the way. I think one really neat one to point out in the bottom there is Nutrien, which I believe Redpath has done business with in the past. Nutrien is actually a very large customer of ours. We've got a very great partnership. We've worked with them for almost 10 years and done a lot of business with them over the years in all types of areas, including Oracle. They're a very happy customer of ours. So I want to highlight them quick. But enough with a quick overview on Hitachi. If anyone doesn't have any questions, or if there are any questions, I can take them, or we can jump right into the demo. Okay, great. Dave, take it away. Dave Messina, I think you're on mute still.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
There we go.
My headset was unmuting automatically in Teams yesterday, so this is just, anyway, so I'm sorry. My name is Dave Messina. I'm with Oracle, and today we'll be doing the Oracle Procurement Cloud Procure to Pay, Automated Invoice Processing, and Employee Expenses Overview. Before I get into that, I just have to show our safe harbor statement here. Oracle Cloud is continuously evolving, improving. As Ann pointed out, we're investing billions in customer feedback. It's constantly improving, and not just bug fixes. You're getting new functionality every quarter. So if a new future roadmap item comes up, I'll be sure to point that out. And then today is just this is the agenda slide that we planned on talking about today. So I want to set the stage with a very quick introduction of Oracle Procurement Cloud, highlight some of the things that Ann was talking about earlier, and then we'll dive right into purchase orders, AP automation, employee expenses reporting, and then wrapping up with Hitachi's Procurement Accelerator solution. So without further ado, let's get into the Oracle Procurement Cloud overview. So on this slide, I just want to highlight that Oracle Procurement Cloud offers a complete source to settle solution. So you can manage your suppliers, your sourcing negotiations, contracts, purchase and settle with a completely modern solution. But the key here is it's all on a single data model, on one seamless solution. And I believe our key differentiators really lie in that strategic procurement side of the process. But yes, Oracle does the day-to-day functions you'd expect a world-class system to do very well. The payments, creating requisitions, creating POs, and interacting with suppliers, et cetera. But the ability to support collaborative negotiations, have enforceable contracts, a streamlined procure-to-pay process that leverages machine learning and automation, as well as the ability to manage supplier qualifications, requalifications, registration. Those are key differentiators, as well as the embedded analytics, the modern best practices that are embedded in the solution, and the automation at every turn. So the whole key here is we really want to try and focus on touchless requisition to check and the ability to pay out of the system. And the key is to simplify, standardize, and automate your processes, increase compliance and reduce risk, and then increase your productivity. But again, I want to highlight again that we are the only solution, the only platform that, again, it's on a single data model. There's no need for a backend integration between all the different areas, including payments. It's all on a single solution. So with that, I'd actually like to start off with a supply registration. So this would be the very beginning of the process, right? Before we create a requisition, we want to make sure we onboard our suppliers. And here is basically that link I clicked was from an email. And you could have that on your website. It could be something that your buyers end up sending to suppliers upon request, or you could manage this internally. But the key here is, this is an example of self-service. So I have a new supplier onboarding. They can enter all their company information. They can enter their contacts. You might have a salesperson. You might have someone in AP or AR collections to deal with. Addresses, you might have multiple addresses, dropship warehouses, corporate, etc. The key here is you can have your suppliers enter this information in a self-service manner. So that way you're not having to double enter this information and it's all confirmed from them. So you run the less risk of fat fingering a number or something. And again, entering information like your tax reporting status, it's all going to end up tying into the reporting in the back end for driving 1099 reporting in the US or I-9 reporting. So again, you have these qualifications here. You have the ability to have attachments. This could be a code of conduct. It could be a W-2, I-9, etc. But the point is they can download this, scan it, sign it, attach it back here. And when it comes to maybe indirect procurement, you may only have two sections, something that's a little easier. If you're just trying to procure maybe paper towels and cleaning supplies, although that could be a little hard today. But if you had maybe more direct procurement, someone that's a supplier that's going to impact your direct supply chain, well, then you might have a more robust qualification here. And all of these will drive essentially automated scoring during our qualifications and through source negotiations. I can quickly show that stuff a bit later, but I just wanted to point some of those features out. So I now want to jump into the UI. So now what I've done is I've logged into the system as Calvin Roth, the Procurement Manager. And as Ian was saying, every user has a different role-based access security given to them. So we have pre-delivered roles. I think the usual suspects you'd expect: a buyer, a procurement manager, a catalog manager, those things. Then in finance, you have AP clerk, AP supervisor, all the way up to CFO. And depending on what your role is, and again, it's configurable so that you can adjust some of the gray areas to meet your company needs. But ultimately what happens is it drives the access to what you see as far as different applications within the software, different reporting, and also flows into the workflow and approvals again. So it makes everything from a user security standpoint much better, leveraging embedded modern best practices when it comes to internal controls. But it's also going to help make each role more efficient because they're going to see different work areas as well as analytics that are more relevant to their roles. So here, when I've logged in, you'll see I would spend a lot of time in procurement, and these are the different areas, work areas in procurement I'd be accessing. Up here is the home button. In case I get lost, I can always click on my heels, tap that, and I'll come back to this screen. I have the ability to save favorites. This could be favorite reports. It could be favorite work areas that you tend to work in more often. Again, someone who's an individual contributor might be using that more than maybe someone for different work areas, opposed to a manager or executive is going to save maybe reports that they use. And then here we have the workflow for approvals. So yes, you can get FYI notifications, and you can also see requisitions that are auto-approved. So again, we want to emphasize touchless rec to check, the ability to configure approval workflows, so you don't necessarily have to touch anything if you don't need to. For example, ordering copy paper, right, for the office. If it's $100 and it's not going to move the needle as far as materiality or cause issues from approval, it's an everyday office expense. Just have it automatically approved. Someone goes in, requisitions it, and moves on. But sometimes you may have something that's significantly more money, or for impacting a particular business unit, and you want to have a second set of eyes on it. Whatever your business needs are for configuration, you can set up the workflow approvals to come here, and you can quickly, if you know what the item is, you've had back and forth conversation with the buyer, or you can just approve or reject it. Or you have a few different options here. You can request more information, go on vacation, delegate it. You can add more comments, attachments, etc. But here you have the ability to review it in more detail, see what's going on with this. In our environment, I had it trigger by dollar amount, so anything over 50 would trigger the need for approval. But I could drive right into the requisition from this workflow. I also have the attachment, the PDF right there. I don't have to chase down disparate PDF reports, go and scan them to my email. I don't have to track down different emails. I don't have to go walk by the water cooler 10 times back and forth to chase down the different people, get signatures, right? Basically, it's the emails. It's all in one workflow, and it's all here. So it makes the whole process much more streamlined. And again, it's all configured to what your needs are. And we support serial or parallel approvals depending on what you would like to do. So, at Oracle, if you go over, say, 5,000, you need your boss's approval, and then over 10, you need your boss's boss, et cetera. Or you can do parallel if you're managing, a few managers are managing, say, a group of buyers or something. If things to finish is just an extension of this bell icon here. We have the ability to have intranet news information if you want in this UI. But here is where we were talking about those embedded analytics. And so this is the analytics page that I think most executives, or really individual contributors as well, they're going to use. They're going to have different views depending on what your role is. And what these infolets let you do is they take information at an aggregate point of view, high level view of what's going on in your business. And then it allows you to say, hey, is there something I need to pay attention to, and then take action on it, and then drill down into the work area. Items that are in red, deviations, those are items that you want to pay attention to and take a closer look. Items in yellow or green, obviously, are good signs. And again, we can have these cover every different area. And these are all so we have pre-delivered infolets and pre-delivered dashboards. We have dozens and dozens of reports that are pre-delivered that are derivatives of these analytic info tiles. And the point is, we give all of these to you so you can hit the ground running day one. You don't have to spend all that time during implementation creating these from scratch. You can. You have the ability to create them pretty quickly. We deliver quite a few of them that can also be used as templates. So you could use them as a template and just tweak them. And it could be as simple as just adding your branding to maybe adding some different business units or things like that, or cost centers. But ultimately, you don't have to do much to those reports if you wanted to make them your own either. But again, we pre-deliver so many that are relevant that you'll be able to add value quickly. And these are user defined. So these are example of ones that we've added. You have the ability to add or remove other infolets here. You can click and drag these around. You can look at these in different views. So one report might have multiple views within that infolet. So again, you can look at these in different ways. And they're dynamic. They're not static reports. So this is a slider capability on it. And I can actually drill down from the infolet into a more detailed report. And if it supports it, I can drill down all the way into the detail as well. But again, these are dynamic. They're not static reports. I can move a slider of time and see how my invoices with no PO change with my suppliers. So again, this is the embedded market best practice. This is leveraging your the managed by exception workflow. So now that we've gone over this, why don't we get into requisitions?
Hey, Dave, real quick.
Yes.
Just while we have a break here, just want to let everyone know if they do have a question and they don't feel like, holding up Dave in any way, you can always put it right in the chat, and one of the folks from our team will answer it via the chat as well, if that works.
Thank you, Phil.
Sorry, continue, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. No, thank you. Before I get requisition, I do know you were asking on to see the ability to have embedded help. We do have that. We have links to different processes with the help, as well as the ability to get to different websites as far as getting more detailed information of how to use the software. But again, you're going to notice this is pretty intuitive. It looks like I'm about to do some online shopping because that's the way it's been set up. So here I have the ability to say search on new helmets. I can go in and search my catalog and see, hey, what items do I have for helmets that I might need? And I can just quickly select a helmet, add it to my cart, and I can submit. And I had a couple in there. And basically the way this is set up, it's going to automatically approve. This is an example of touchless rec to check because the dollar amount is below 50K in this example. But ultimately what you have, I wanted to highlight of, it can literally be purchased and requisitioned in a matter of seconds, right? Now, obviously I want to do a deeper dive here. So I'm going to add maybe 15 of these again to the cart. I'll add one of these. And when I click down, I want to review this in a little more detail so you can actually see what the requisition page looks like, right? But I wanted to highlight again how intuitive and how quickly you can requisition catalog items. But here is all the usual suspects, so to speak, the things that you'd expect here, the ability to edit your line items, your quantities. On these items, you're actually able to have line discounts by percent on this requisition. So one helmet was $49, but once we've broken 10, it actually became a discount. I'll show you that when I look into the item a little more, just a comparison shopping. But if I scroll down here, I have the ability to change my one-time delivery location, requester date, send this information to the supplier. Now, this charge account here, you could have the ability to have this completely grayed out. So you would have buyers or whoever's requisitioning this not be able to affect those at all. Or you could have it so a certain matrix of accounts are available. So that way they're not booking something to the wrong cost center or something that's like intercompany account or something crazy, right? You have the ability through those role-based access and through configuration to highlight what charge accounts they can change. And then you have the ability to break those costs out potentially through different maybe cost centers, might have different business units. So again, you could break those out by percentage, quantity, etc. You can leave notes to the supplier and all that. So I'm just going to click shop, get out of here. So we have the ability to do comparison shopping.
Just with Redpath, just a quick question on that. So are the account codes tied back to the inventory items or the requisitioner, or like when you talk about automatic purchasing or automatic requisitions where you just click, hit submit, and it's ordered? I didn't see you put an account code anywhere in there.
Right. So let me just click back in here just so we can talk about that. And I just want to repeat your question. So you're saying this account code is automatically populated here, right? Is that your question? So you're asking, do you have the ability to make these changes, or you're saying how come those are automatically populated?
No. So really, my question was when you said you could just click on that first hard hat, it gets automatically ordered. I didn't see you put an account code anywhere in there.
Right, because, okay, so those are catalog items.
Right.
And essentially, through blanket purchase agreements and setting up agreements with these suppliers, that's already been done in the back end to make it that much more efficient, more on the front end here. So you basically can configure all of those with the supplier when you set up those items. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so the account code is tied to the inventory item then.
It can be. Yep.
I'm sorry. It can be. You could actually build that account code however you need to, right? So the first segment and second segment might come from the employee who's placing the requisition, right? And the department that they're tied to. And the third might come from the item itself, and then the follow-on could come from other sources. So that's actually something that's built in the background, and you set rules to do that. So in the example that he has here, it's getting populated 100%. But there might be some situations where, depending on how deep your account codes go, someone can't necessarily derive a full account, and we require somebody to enter one or two of those segments. That can be done as well.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. So you could force somebody to enter the account. So because that hard hat could go to project A, B, C, or X, right?
Yes, exactly. And certainly in mining and engineering and construction, everything is project based. So yes, you could be driving all that based on different rules that you have in your project, right? So and even different projects might derive those accounts differently. So we've got a lot of capability there.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. And yes, again, that's all configurable. So getting back to requisitions, a few more things I want to point out here.
Hey, Dave.
Hi.
Dave, just for everyone's benefit, there's a question from Sudhir as well. I'm happy to read it here. Would there be an ability for Redpath suppliers to self-register, upload, and maintain their catalogs, allowing Redpath requester to create a requisition choosing an item from the supplier catalog?
Yep, I was about to get to that in the next minute here. So yep, I was going to show transparent punch outs and other catalogs and the way these were set up. So the answer to that is yes, and I'll show you that in a minute here. So I'll start here with just I want to quickly show again how the comparison features here. You have the ability to add comparison shopping, and you can compare multiple items. Again, these are catalog items that have been set up, more of an internal catalog. But we have those transparent punch-ups. I'll show you in a second here. But again, you have the ability to quickly look at a couple of different items. Notice you have the ability to add those discounts. You can, again, have agreements all tied into the same system without having to manage different integrations to have all of those agreements tied to these items. But if I scroll down here to this optical trackball, so this is an example of a transparent punch-out. So what this is doing is it's using XML data to essentially pull information from the supplier. So anytime they change this picture, anytime they change the item, that even the price, a description, it'll update on their end and their website, and then it'll push the data to you. So you have a lot less to maintain from a catalog perspective from your business. But you can go from the secure site here, which is your requisition page, to secure third-party punch out. You can add to cart and then check out, again, just as if you were shopping online, because you are, and then transfer it back to your shopping cart. And this is going to bring, again, the connection back to your requisition system. And now you see the line item here. So again, that's an example of that punch out. And again, all of the charge accounts, they can be set up to configure by that item number or by the person who requisitioned, et cetera, as was stated earlier. The other thing that I wanted to point out here was with shopping lists. So if you have a new employee and you need to set them up with a new hard hat, safety vest, steel toe boots, et cetera, laptop, well, then now you have the ability to make a mini bomb essentially. So you have the ability to make an entire list, click on that list, and send that all to the page, to the cart, and you can purchase everything at once. You don't have to go and manually add all of those items individually. So that can be very helpful when you need a lot of things requisitioned for that are in similar specs. And then we have a catch-all for forms. So if there's not a third-party punch-out, there's not an internally maintained catalog, and especially if there's services, and we'll definitely cover that more in depth with the procurement accelerator. But these are another example of the way to put a requisition maybe for services. So here, with the ability to look at, this is a catch-all for goods, maybe a unique good that you need to requisition. Here we have consulting services. Notice the supplier and agreement are already filled in. Again, it's leveraging that's the suppliers that have been registered with us. We have an agreement in place with them. It's just entering a few pieces of information to requisition. These forms are all configured to meet your needs. Maybe you want to order business cards. You have a corporate branding for business cards, they all look the same, but you need to have a new employee enter their information. While they can do that here, this is an easy way to do that. So again, agreements already in place, suppliers in place. They just need to enter their name, title, etc. And then once they order it, again, they may even want to leverage something like our chatbot. So through this digital assistant, you have the ability to even do some requisitioning. I could reorder business cards here. I can just add my quantity. Do I want to create a requisition? Yes, and it's going to actually create a business card requisition for me. Just leveraging a digital assistant. So you may not necessarily have to even be in the, for certain items, right? Depending on how you configure that, available as far as being able to requisition. So you have a lot of different options as far as doing that. So with that, I do want to then just quickly pause here. And again, I think we covered basically purchase orders, right? We've gone into, we've reviewed the role-based dashboard. We talked about searching the catalog to create requisitions, transparent punch outs, forms. Are there any other questions that I can answer from what I've showed you from procurement? If not, I would like to move on to the automated voice processing. Keep the presentation moving. Again, if there's any questions though, definitely chime in on the chat too. So now I'd like to move on to automate invoice processing. So here we'll be using Ryan Lee. He is a supplier. I want to emphasize this again. I'm going to log into the supplier portal as a supplier, Ryan Lee, and he's going to be doing that PO flip, which is basically taking a PO that the buying organization sent to the supplier and then turning it into electronic invoice. So again, we're only log as them because it's going to look very similar because it's all in the same single data model. They basically just have different role-based securities. And then I want to show this exciting new technology we have called IDR. It's basically automated invoice processing that leverages machine learning. So I'll get into that. I'll show an example of multi-currency invoice and then round it out with payments because our solution does settle payments. So with that, I'm logged in here now as Ryan Lee, who is a supplier. And even the suppliers have access to Influence and analytics to make working with you that much more effective and the ability to add value to you as well. And again, this is the same unified system. It's using role-based access, so they have obviously very limited security access. But this allows for real-time sharing of live information, invoices, right? They have the ability to manage all of their purchase orders, schedules, their agreements they have with you. They have the ability to manage all their different shipments, create advanced shipment notices. They can view their returns, damaged goods, view their receipts. They have the ability to create invoices, which I'm going to show in a minute, as well as view ones that are already made, and then view payments as well. So that maybe they'll be sending you less statements every month to see if you've paid or not. You have the ability to view different qualifications and requalifications. Maybe it's just as simple as just managing a profile. So, I mean, as I showed you in the supplier registration, self-service, there's a lot of addresses here, right? A lot of different contacts. So instead of managing this in a disparate email system or in a disparate system, if they update something on their end, that information just gets automatically pushed to you. So again, you don't have to manage some of those things. You can take something off your plate and make sure you have the most up-to-date information. You have the ability to even look at, again, sourcing. So you have the ability to reply to different sourcing events. So if I come in here, I can just look at a sourcing negotiation that's been sent. I can look at my requirements, respond to the different questionnaires, review the lines. I can respond by spreadsheet. I just want to point this out for you really quickly, just to show that we are a true source to settle solution and not just a procure to pay solution. But you have the ability to quickly do that and have that two-way communication or three-way communication available to you. But now I want to show the PO flip. So a supplier would come in and they would go to create invoice. And again, we create invoice because this has a PO. And I'm going to type in, I'm going to search for my PO. And notice how it's going to automatically search for an available purchase order. it's again, this is, even though it's a supplier, it's all in a single data model, searching for a validated PO that exists. And now it's pulling that information. It pulled the supplier site. I'm able to pull in bank account information. I'm going to type it in an invoice number and a date. Once I do that, now this little box is not grayed out anymore. Now I have the ability to pull the PO lines. I have 2 here on this, and apply them to the invoice. And now essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking that invoice and I'm flipping it into, I'm taking that purchase order, and I'm flipping it into electronic invoice. And once I do that, it'll then be added to the invoice, and then I can submit it to our payables department at the buyer organization. So there we go. So it pulled that PO information. Here's the link to the PO. It pulled the different line items. I can then, it's been validated. I have the ability to calculate tax if needed, and I can just click submit. And again, this will, once I submit this, it'll show up in the AP manager's queue as far as invoices to process. You could manually attach an invoice here if you needed to just have some kind of paper trail. But again, this is all in a single data model. You don't need to do that because it's an electronic invoice. But this is an example of a PO flip. And it's been, oh, yeah, I needed to calculate the tax. I'm going to submit it. So the other thing I wanted to show, if it's been submitted. Great. So the other thing that I wanted to show now is I want to move to IDR. So the latest technology with automated invoices is intelligent document recognition. And essentially what this is it leverages machine learning, and you can teach an invoice how to increase its hit rate for auto-populating and automating the process. So the process here is you'll have suppliers who can't do a PO flip or leverage EDI. Well, they can then email everything else, especially stuff that's a non-PO invoice. This is a way to send invoices and still have some automation. So you can email your invoices in, and then ideally it'll just read it and then be ready for payment, touchless, right? But there are going to be some exceptions, and then when those pop out, you have the ability to route them to a person, have the system learn, right? Teach the system how to scan that invoice moving forward to increase hit rate, and then it'll be ready for payment. And I think the thing that's missing here is another arrow, right? Because once you teach it, it'll come all the way back through the process, and then it's just going to be ready for payment. And you don't have to do that again. So I want to come in and show you our new IDR. So when I log into payables, and this is a payable supervisor now, Roger Bolton, I'm going to come into the invoices application here. And again, we have infolets to help you manage by exception. So I can quickly see, okay, I have 30 overdue invoices. I want to look at just those and work on those right now. I have the ability to look at invoices that are on hold and why the reason is validation, purchasing, etc. The whole point here is instead of having to manually type in every invoice, you're able to scan them and then have most of them, and hopefully all of them someday, be completely touchless. But again, there's still going to be some exceptions, and I want to show you how to handle that. So this is a baseline example, right? This is one that worked. We just stopped it from auto processing, so we have something to show you. And I'll blow this up so I can show my talking points here. So we have an invoice number and a date here. The system was able to scan this and turn it and convert it into a PDF. And what it's doing is it was able to then populate the invoice number, invoice date, the line item information, all this information, and process it ready for payment. It just needs to be validated. And when you scan that invoice in, it will, if it's an image, it'll turn it to a PDF. It's a PDF. Then it'll still be a PDF. But what it does is it takes advantage of the textual layer behind it. So you also have a searchable database of invoice information as well. So you can start typing in different searches for the invoices as well. It's not just a static image. And so here's an example of an invalid invoice. So I want to blow this up just to highlight the invoice number and date are here. So this is going to work much more effectively with standard invoice templates, right? And most of your suppliers fall into that category. You know, a mom and pop t-shirt shop that might handwrite an invoice, IDR might struggle with that. But when it comes to a standardized format invoice, it knows how to learn and increase hit rate. And so here we have the invoice numbers down here in the date. It also is using a reference number instead of an invoice number. So the suppliers obviously changed a couple of things here. So what I want to do is I want to teach it. So if I click on this box that's red, and I want to show you both these boxes real quick. So this box is red, saying it doesn't have the information, and this is yellow because it wasn't able to read the date, so it just populated today's date. So what I can do is if I click on this, it's going to turn blue, and then I'm going to highlight this reference number, and it's going to populate that field. So now it knows, oh, that is the invoice number. The same thing with invoice date. I'm going to highlight that. It now changed the date to the date on the invoice. So it's learned, and now I can click save. And I'm going to, oh, it's not counted. Validate it.
This isn't the supplier doing this, all right? This is
No.
So
exactly. I've switched to now the buyer organization. The automated invoice processing and IDR, that is now someone who's on the buyer organization who works in accounts payable. I wanted to highlight previously that was a supplier doing a PO flip.
right.
I hope I was able to differentiate those. Okay, great. So I'm going to hit save and close. So now what I want to do is it's now been, I updated it, and now it's pulling that invoice number. So now I want to show, okay, did it actually learn? So I have a new invoice. This is a different invoice number, a different date. It's in that same odd location, and I'm going to submit this so you can actually see how it learns. So I need to email to that server. I need to find my invoice here. Going to send it. And I'm just gonna, this is just a demo tool. I just want to make sure that it came in. Let's pull it over here. And then once that invoice comes in, I'll then be able to run an import process that, again, from a demo environment, it's in. So as a demo environment, we run this so we can show you, but ultimately this can all be automated or scheduled, really. So what you can do is you can have these run every night, overnight. You can have them run every hour, every 2 hours. Whatever your business needs are, you can schedule this process to run. And in about a minute or two here, it should come through. And there it is. It's invalid. I think it's because it didn't turn blue. Yeah, there it is. I think I need to scan it on this side. But ultimately, it'll be able to learn that system. I can maybe create another one quickly and try to do that. Or I want to keep the demonstration moving, but also you'll be able to have the system learn that latest technology. So I can try and do one more if there's more time after, but I want to keep them moving. But ultimately, you have the ability to learn how to do, and system learn how to scan that invoice.
If you have the supplier inputting the invoicing, then you don't have to even have that functionality though, correct?
Correct. So what I was trying to highlight here was the fact that this was a non-PO invoice. So the idea is, and even with IDR or an automated invoice processing, what happens is if you have a PO, it's definitely going to search for that and then pull all those PO lines in and make the process that much more effective. However, if you don't have a PO, and through our regular optical character recognition during invoice processing, you'll have good hit rates, but the IDR with the machine learning increases the hit rate that much more. So that's the overall point, is to even catch all the non-PO invoices as well. So with that, I did want to then just move quickly. I just wanted to show you an example of, we support multiple currencies, we have multiple languages, and then we also support different tax regimes, VAT taxes, etc. So you have the ability to calculate your VAT taxes. This is all configuration done when you're first setting things up. But again, you have the ability to meet all of your localization needs for invoicing as well. And the last thing I wanted to show was payments. So submitting payments and payment batches. This can be essentially pre-configured in a way. We leverage these things called we leverage templates that'll auto-populate many of these fields. You have the ability to also make different changes to these fields when you're setting them up. You have the ability to review installments, or you can make this basically as automated of a payment process or as much review, depending on what your comfortability level is, what your business needs are. You can make this process more automated as well. And ultimately, after running that process, and I'll show you what a batches looks like. If I come to this is a payments batch. So now I have all my installments, and here I'd be able to add and remove the different installments from the batch, and also be able to review the different payments that are going to go out. And again, I want to highlight that we have the ability to support any currency, any banking file, positive pay, checks, ACH wire, any way you can pay an invoice, we can do it. So, so with that, I'd like to pause here for any more questions. Again, I think we've covered almost everything here, right? Self-service procurement, purchasing, payables, including payments. We've covered some analytics reporting. I'll definitely do the reporting section formally. We've covered the supplier portal, and a little bit of supplier quality management. So from here, I want to move on to expenses. So what
sorry, it's
yes.
Blair again. Sorry, I got another question for you.
Absolutely.
Who's driving taxes? Is the supplier driving taxes? Is taxes being driven on the purchasing side of things? Who's driving the taxes?
Right. So from a tax point of view, again, you need to set up a lot of business configuration when you first set up your system. And you would set up your tax regimes and all the different tax implications. But ultimately, there's two different ways. There's taxes. Well, from this side, from the payment side, you can have that set up at the payable side, or during when the purchase order is set up as well. Ultimately, that's on within the Oracle system. But I guess I want to ask a question. Are you saying, so if you have suppliers that may be tax exempt or they have unique taxes, and then how would we process that?
Or we're shipping to different provinces or different countries from Canada.
Okay.
Who's driving taxes?
Okay, now I think I understand your question a little better. So when you're setting up those suppliers, they can have different supplier sites, and they're going to have different locations. So when you set up those supplier sites, and this can be, again, self-service through, suppliers can do this on their own when they register, or you can add this as well. when you update the supply master. But ultimately what you can do is have different sites, and then their location and that supplier site information is going to drive the different tax reporting, again, that you set up and configure.
Okay.
So-
I'll give you a different, maybe I'll give you a different example. So I'd like to have one master file for Acklands. Okay, so I have Acklands set up in the system, and I got to ship hard hats to BC, and I got to ship hard hats out to Newfoundland. Obviously, both are different tax codes. Is the purchasing people putting in the tax codes? Is it based on delivery address? What's driving the taxes?
Yeah, and maybe this is Dave Schmiede. Maybe I can just jump in here. So if you're doing self-assessment taxation, the system's leveraging Vertex, which then is looking at the ship to location. So when you enter in that requisition, the system's going to automatically put the taxation on that. When your suppliers, if your suppliers then send an invoice back in, and it has, for whatever reason, taxes that are different than the self-assessed taxes, you have the option of taking your self-assessed taxation or accept their taxation.
Okay, good. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave, for explaining that. So if there's any more questions, are there any more questions on invoicing and taxes? I'm going to move on to mobile expenses here. So with here, I want to show you how I would enter expenses, because again, Oracle leverages the same software. We use the same software for purchasing and finances. We're using our own stuff. And I'll show you how I would enter expense. I want to show you some of the new machine learning that's even available in expenses. And then I want to show you some of the reporting around there. And then we'll dive into some other reporting as well. So I'm logged in as Amy Marlin, who's a project manager, or for all intents and purposes, think of her as an employee, but she's a project manager in this case. And this is what it would look like if she was to log into expenses from the application. She could do all the things that you'd expect, create expense reports, update the different items here, etc. But, and I need to fight with my view here. Okay, so now I'm logged in the mobile app on my phone. And so if I were, say, traveling to see Redpath, what I would do is I would have my credit card charges come through here. So again, I can look at all my different expenses by type, air, hotel, mileage, by project, if I had a project, or by source. I can look at cash versus credit card. And I can come in here and look at my expenses, and I would be able to look at my airfare, and I have my attachments here. If I need to update my project information, I can do that. Before I would enter all of my attachments here, so I already have some attachments that I've already added, but before I set off to go to the airport, what I would do is maybe leverage this tracker tool. So this is going to pull my address. I can click start up here. And what that'll do is it'll basically, it'll start tracking my location. And then when I get to Logan Airport, because I'm just north of Boston here, and hit stop, it'll create a attachment for an expense to show my mileage. And then it'll automatically create my mileage. Of course, if I forget to do that, I could always just manually type in a mileage as well. Before I do that, I might maybe want to stop by a local coffee shop first. I can stop at my coffee shop, take a quick picture, choose, attach, and then I can scroll here to breakfast, enter my amount. It's automatically populated my location. It's actually saved my previous product information. But again, if it was a different one, I can change it. I hit save, and now I have a new cash breakfast expense. So the point here is this is just going to make the whole process easier. You don't have to deal with crumpled up receipts, scanning them manually, emailing to yourself, and then adding them to the system, right? You have the ability to take pictures of receipts. You have the ability to add receipts too as well. I mean, I can create just a new mileage here, and I could also take them from my camera, my photo gallery as well. So again, I think this makes the process much more streamlined. And then ultimately I can then either upload them and then process them on the quote unquote desktop version, or I can actually submit them. And I can choose which expenses to submit or not. And then I can just create an expense report, enter a purpose. And I've already got my attachments, and I can submit it. And it's asking me if I agree to the expense policy. So again, I'll show you that in a second here, but you have the ability to have the expense policies there, so you can have that attachment here. So you could have, when you create an expense, you could have the expense policy when you create an expense report. So if I were to create a report here, you could do that. If you have red, you can actually have the document here. You can even change, if you don't necessarily have to have the payment method here. You can have it set so they automatically get direct deposit or check or whatever your needs are. But this is how you would expect your expense report here. The other thing, and I just want to hit on the mobile is, and let me just pull this up. So this is an example of my expenses. So we're leveraging, again, through SMS, I had the ability to leverage machine learning to scan this invoice. So this is back in September because we haven't been traveling, unfortunately, because of COVID. So I needed some new printer ink. So I ended up scanning an invoice for printer ink locally near me. And then all asked was for a description of what this was. And it pulled in everything else. I was able to pull in office supplies, amount, date, the vendor, and then it auto submitted an expense report for me. So there's a few of the different options here from the digital system that are available, but ultimately we have that technology as well.
Sorry, are you intending to be sharing your screen right now?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I see it all.
So you saw that demonstration. Okay, great. So then the other thing that I wanted to show was we even have the ability to, again, leverage our digital chatbot. So again, you'd have the ability to, you could leverage this on your phone or through the desktop, but you could leverage a chatbot. I just quickly added this stuff. It always asks me to say hi. I keep forgetting that stuff. And that hi is what it's doing, is it's revalidating the security of the role-based access, and also it's going to drive a few other things like the account string, right? So these expenses are going to go to based upon where my cost centers are, right? It's going to fill that stuff in, but it's going to scan this invoice, ask for. Yep.
Dave, you did go offline now.
Yeah. Now we don't.
You need to reshare. I don't know what happened, but so when you put that receipt in, it disappeared.
Okay, give me 1 second here. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to Can you now see my screen again?
We're getting there, I think.
All right.
It's still black. Maybe
I think, Dave, it is sharing your team's screen rather than Oracle screen.
I'm not quite sure.
so. It appears like you're trying to share, but maybe flip to the PowerPoint and see if we see that.
I'm at the PowerPoint now.
Oh, because all we see is a black screen and with the DM on it.
I'm not quite sure how to fix that in Teams then. If anyone else has some guidance on how to do that, I've clicked on more actions.
So
I'm
Dave,
sharing my
just
screen.
yeah, just in benefit of time, maybe we can switch to the next topic and let's come back to expenses. Let's, maybe you have a little internet issue over there. How about that?
I mean, if you can, but you can't see my screen though, right?
I can pull up the slide deck and we can run from there.
Okay. And now my computer is frozen up.
Okay, let's. I apologize, everyone. Some technical glitches here. No matter how many dry runs you do, this is exactly what happens, right? So maybe we'll switch over to the next topic here, and we're gonna come back in a couple of minutes. Let's see. I think Dave, you're retrying it.
Yeah. Do you see my screen again or no?
No. Maybe you just wanna restart your laptop. In the meanwhile, we'll maybe switch to the Hitachi solution, and we'll come back. How about that?
Sure.
So let me pull up my screen here. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. And I'm sorry, we have a PDF over here instead of the PowerPoint slide deck, but hopefully it should work fine. Is everyone able to see my screen now?
Yes, Mukuli, what's that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Mukul Khandelwal. I'm director with Hitachi Vantara, based out of Dallas, Texas in the US. Been with the firm for 16 years now, and I am a delivery leader for this account. So before we jump on to the Hitachi procurement solution, or services procurement accelerator, as we call it, let's spend a couple minutes talking about why exactly do we need this? What is the business challenge here that we're trying to solve? So, what you see on the screen is some of the business scenarios that we see companies in asset-intensive industries having a constant challenge with. Let me pick an example out of this list. Engineer-to-order material. So let's say I am a project manager for working for an asset-intensive company. First of all, I'm sitting in probably in middle of nowhere, right? A remote site. I have a project team, site engineers working for me, and I have a bunch of subcontractors. Engineer to order material. So we have released a purchase order. And as the vendor starts getting the material ready, there will be multiple milestones, multiple deliverables all along the way. Once the material is ready, it will be shipped. So even more notifications. Once material is delivered, maybe there's installation required. So more quality checks, all of that. All along the way, as the vendor is completing these milestones, there's a giant trail of paperwork, right? Could be technical, could be commercial. All of that is coming my way. My procurement coordinator, if I may call, is sitting in a corporate office, or maybe in working from home in today's world. As the vendor completes the work, vendor will submit an invoice. The invoice will go to the procurement coordinator, and that's when the chase begins. That's when procurement coordinator will reach out to the project manager, which is me, and then I will start chasing my staff engineers to get a confirmation on the milestones, deliverables, work confirmations, all of that, right? And this, once all of the paperwork is in place, maybe some of this cost, I have to pass it through to my customers. So even more paperwork required. My struggle all along is I do not have an application or a platform where I have clear visibility to this. this whole process end to end. And this cycle, once the vendor submits the invoice to the organization releasing the payment, could take anywhere between 30 to 90 days. What this means is, first of all, if there were any early payment discounts, we have lost on those. And then if there were, I'm sorry, there's some background noise. If unless there's a question, if you want to go on mute, please. Thank you. So if there are any early payment discounts, you have lost on those. Even worse, maybe you are overdue. So this 30 to 90 days that it takes for taking from invoice to payment, this happens in companies which run on wafer thin margins. We know of clients where they bid on these giant projects in EPC industry, in mining industry. At times they bid on projects with a negative margin, and the only way they can make money is to make their procurement extremely efficient. So that's a constant challenge we see for our clients. Now let's fast forward it. No, this is not the thank you time, sorry. Let's fast forward it to a day in the life of the procurement accelerator. That's what we're going to demo in a minute here. So once the accelerator is installed along with cloud procurement, what it does is, and all of these boxes or kind of swim lanes that you see on the screen right now are different roles, as we call them, within Oracle application. They may not exactly rhyme with what you have, but could be very similar. So first of all, we have, let's play the whole scenario one more time here. So you have a buyer. Buyer is keying in the purchase order along with all the item structure, all the deliverables are neatly listed, commercial, technical. Purchase order goes through approval process and it's issued to the vendor. The moment it's issued, vendor will have access to all that information via the supplier portal on the other side. As work gets completed, as milestones are met, vendor will start submitting deliverables via the portal. Those deliverables will be routed to either the site engineers or other approvers within the organization for approval real time. You're not waiting for an invoice to come in to go start chasing for the work to done. All of this is happening real time as work gets completed. There's clear traceability of where exactly the purchase order is stuck, or the work is stuck rather. Once all of this is done, the project manager approves what we call as pay items. We'll talk more about in a minute here as we get on to the demo. And from there on, let's say in middle of all of this, the vendor sends the invoice. Now, invoice will get linked to the purchase order to an appropriate milestone, and there it goes for payment processing by the payables administrator. The whole cycle that I earlier mentioned, that it takes 30 to 90 days, we have clients where it got squeezed and came down to 7 to 14 days. From 30 to 90 days, it came down to 7 to 14 days. So that's the difference. As an example, this accelerator has provided. Any questions still here? Okay, with that, I will pass it on to Ajay Narayan for the demo. Ajay, take it away.
Thank you, Mukul. Once again, good morning and good evening, everyone. I'm Ajay Narayan, Senior Manager with Hitachi and a cloud architect on our cloud engagements. So what I'm going to do next is take you all through an overview of our service procurement accelerator in cloud and show you how the solution looks like and different options and screens available there. So I'm going to quickly share my screen here. I hope you all are able to see my screen here.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Oops, sorry, I think it's session timeout. So service procurement accelerator, it all starts with a purchase order, right? Once we have purchase order created in the system, the next step for a buyer would be, or a procurement coordinator would be to go in and start defining all the payment milestones and attach all the deliverables, perform the work confirmations and things like that. Right? So the starting point would be a purchase order. So what I've done for our demo today is staged a purchase order here with all the necessary information. It's a single line purchase order with 100,000 Canadian dollars, right? So once all of my purchase order information is keyed in, user will be able to use service procurement button or this link that's embedded into the purchase order screen itself and launch the solution or the accelerator, right? As soon as a user clicks on this link, the system will take user to the landing page of the service procurement accelerator. Now, all the options or different pages that are available on the screen are completely controlled through role-based access. And also it's a single sign-on enabled, right, for a seamless navigation. So depending on the administrator controlling the access in the standard application, these options can be made available or revoked for a given user. So let's start with the deliverables, right? So deliverables is what I call as a submittals, right, or a proof for the work that has been performed. So this screen here or this page here gives access for a user to go and create different kinds of deliverables for the work that they are performing, right? It could be a commercial deliverable or it could be a technical deliverable. So they can capture all that information here. It could be relative to a certain number of days, or it could be a fixed kind of deliverable. So all that information can be entered in the screen. And also we can tag the approver who will be reviewing and approving these when they go ahead and review the work confirmations for these deliverables, right? Also, if there are any attachments that need to be uploaded, they can all be done using the single screen. We also have an ability to do a kind of bulk upload in case if you're dealing with large volumes of data, we can do an Excel-based bulk upload by using the format that's available right within this tool here. Right. The very same deliverable page is also exposed to the supplier through the supplier portal. So in the screen here, I've logged in as a supplier where I could see the deliverable and work confirmation are the two options that are exposed to a supplier, right? So using this button, a supplier can also launch and create deliverables from their end itself via the supplier portal. Now, as you could see for supplier, the only two options available is deliverables and work confirmation, and all other things like pay items and all are controlled for the main user within the organization. So once my deliverables are created and ready to go, the next step for me would be to go ahead and create my pay items, right? This is a very important form or a page. Now, pay item is where I would define the structure of my billing, right? My payments. How would I go about this particular purchase order? So in this very example, what I've done, I have a single line purchase order, but I want to make it a milestone based billing, right? So I have created 3 different milestones here with relative percentages. We could also do maybe a rate based if it's given the scenario, or it could be a lump sum based as well, right? So different options are available for you to define the structure of how the invoice payments or the billing will go through. Also, we could further split them into multiple lines using the split options available on the screen, as well as, again, if we're dealing with purchase orders that have large volumes of data, we could use our Excel utility to export, fill in, and upload it right away into the tool. And all of this information in the very beginning, if we have, let's say a 50-line purchase order, there will be at least one pay item defaulted for each line by the system, and then user can go about splitting them as required or change the type of the pay item. Also, the approver on these pay items will be defaulted from the project manager on the project that has been linked to the purchase order. System will go and retrieve and then default that as an approver. We can always go ahead and add additional approvers as required. And the deliverables that we had created in the prior screen, we can always link them to these pay items such that they can further get defaulted within our work confirmations. Right? So this is one very important form or a page where we define our payments or the billing structure. So once I have all of this ready to go, as and when the work gets performed, we can go into the work confirmation form to start creating work confirmation so we can actualize the work, right? Now the work has been performed. I have to get that work confirmation approved, and then further take the approval to the next level where the pay items, which in other words I would say is kind of an invoice review and approval approach, right, can also be done. In this case, so we started with a single line PO. I created a next layer of structure with 3 milestones. And for my very first milestone, I have further split that into 4 different work confirmations. So the way we can go granular into these different structures, right, is what I wanted to call out. So different work confirmations have been created here. And once all my work confirmations are ready, I can go and submit these work confirmations, or the procurement coordinator, if I may say, can submit these work confirmations for approval. They could submit all of these at once or pick and choose the ones that are ready to go forward. Right? The reviewers or the approvers that were identified on the deliverables are already defaulted on the screen, and we can always add additional reviewers if required. So once I select a work confirmation and submit for approval, system will go and trigger a notification in the work list area. So this work list area is within the standard application itself. There's an option available here, a service procurement work list icon that I could use and go into the work list and look at all my pending notifications and open each one of those, look further details and either approve or reject. Right. System also provides an email notification of the same work confirmation. So if a user prefers to go into their email, look at the details and take action, they could do so from the email as well. So both options are available here. So let me get back here. So let's say I have submitted my work confirmations and they all have been routed for approval. If there are more than one approvers tagged to these work confirmations, system will start capturing the response as and when it gets from each approver. So I could see who has approved and who has not going into this reviewer screen and accordingly follow up with the relative stakeholders. At this point in time, there are a couple of options available when it comes to work confirmations, approval, and then invoicing, right? So I have scenario 1, right? In this case, if I have work confirmations and then I want to also get it approved as well as auto create my invoice or auto generate the invoice. I don't want to wait for the vendor to submit, but rather have system create the invoice for me. So I can enable that options. So as soon as I submit this work confirmation for approval, once the approval has been received, system will go to the next level, create an invoice and also notify the project manager who we identified on the pay items. We have the similar mechanism, right? Even project manager gets a work list as well as an email notification. Of course, with additional details of an invoice, they can review and click approve, which in case is a confirmation for the invoice to be paid. Right? Or if I choose not to auto generate an invoice, then we will wait for vendor to submit the invoice via the portal or via the OCR or the scanning functionality, or even a manual invoice, doesn't matter. But as long as the invoice is available in the application, user or the coordinator can look for the invoice using the invoice page and then link the invoice and then submit for the approval. Right. But what happens when we link an invoice to a work confirmation and take it for the approval to the pay items, right? Let me query, or I have an invoice open here to show you that. So this is an example or a sample invoice that I have created and matched to a purchase order. So when we propagate through different stages in the life cycle where I create my work confirmations, submit for approval, or take it to the next level for invoice confirmation, things like that, there is a constant track on this invoice via the hold mechanism. So if you can see on the screen, so it all starts with a default hold on the invoice. This is how system would apply a hold and stop the invoice from getting paid. And when my work confirmations are submitted, it puts a subsequent hold as work confirmation in progress. And then once my work confirmations get approved, system automatically comes in, releases this and applies the next level of hold, which is my pending PM approval. The benefit of this is obviously, the invoice will be held from being paid, but also at the same time, a complete real-time visibility into what's happening with my invoice, right? When a supplier logs in through their supplier portal and looks at this invoice, they can see and find out where their invoice is at this point in time in the overall cycle or the life cycle. And that's the real-time visibility they get through this process. So that's how we can leverage work confirmation. This is a simple use case that I have created. Now, system is also enabled to either deal in a scenario where, let's say, a vendor submits one invoice that could probably be applicable for all of these work confirmations. A single invoice, multiple work confirmation scenario. Yes, we can go and link a single invoice against all the 4 work confirmations. Or if for whatever reason vendor submits 2 invoices for a single work confirmation, even that can be done. All necessary validations, checks and balances are all built into this solution, which will get triggered as and when you start submitting them for approval. And if for whatever reason those validations don't go through, the amount doesn't match and things like that, system will give you a notification and a pop-up on the screen itself, letting you know what is the reason why it cannot take it forward. So all those checks and balances have already been built in. And one other functionality that also is available within the solution itself is the retention functionality. Now, retention, if in a specific scenario, a supplier, there's a contractual terms about retainage. So invoice amount is held for a certain percentage, then it's retained. We can see that on the invoice itself via the installment section. If there is a retainage of, let's say, 90-10 or 80-20, right? So 20% of the amount will be retained. There will be a hold on this. The same amount could be seen here in the retention screen itself. And you can control further whether you want to release that remaining 20% or maybe further, just hold back another 10%, release the remaining 10. So all of that could be controlled via this retention screen itself. So that also is a functionality that is available within the solution. So I think this is the overall flow of our services procurement. Comes in with deliverables option, comes in with an ability to define your milestones and control them, comes in with an ability to get all the approvals done for your work that's been performed, as well as the invoice confirmation from the PM, and then track all of that real time on the invoice as well. Let me give a pause here. So any questions?
Thanks, Ajay. I think one important thing to note here, this is Phil with Hitachi, is that this enhancement that we've added on to Oracle's solution is all seamless. So your users won't even know that anything's been changed or altered or enhanced. It's all seamless. You're not going out to a different area. It's all integrated seamlessly with the user interface. And the reason, again, why we've done this is because we've been in the industry. We've worked with dozens of customers that have these enhanced procurement, complex PO, service-oriented needs, and we saw that there was a great fit for this. And we've got customers using it right now who give us feedback and say that they've noticed that they're saving several millions of dollars several millions of dollars per year using this solution, just because it really cuts the corners, it simplifies things, it speeds up the processes, and it really it helps them conduct their business much more efficiently. So thanks, Ajay. Great job. Any questions on it? Okay, Dave, I see we have you back. I'm not sure if you want to try to jump back in and address some more of the expenses
sure
lines that we were going along. And I know that I think maybe what got lost there right at the end was you were showing the intuitiveness of the Oracle solution. So very, very smart expenses. The way things are get paid, you can take a picture from any device and it automatically intuitively reads the different fields, auto populates them. It cuts a lot of the busy work out for anyone who's doing their expense report or submitting an expense. I think basically that's what Dave was trying to show with the pictures from his phone and whatnot.
Exactly, the ability to do that on the go, right? And
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to be tied to computer to your expenses. You can submit right from there. And again, the new machine learning technology is making it even easier, right? So a lot less entering manually. You can it's moving towards taking a picture, scanning, and you're just basically confirming. So again, saving a lot of time. So you guys see my screen now, the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So I do wanted to show some reporting around expenses, and then we'll get into more reporting, some our strategic procurement analytics, and then our dashboard here. So with that, let me log in as Megan Schneider. So if I come into reports and analytics, and think of this reports and analytics section as this is really a repository, again, of dozens and dozens of reports and dashboards that are prefigured. This is just an example, one of them. This is regarding expenses. So even from an expenses point of view, you would have reporting around here. And there's different visualizations of analytics, but this is a good indicator of showing you how you would report on expenses by cost, by category. You can see who your top top spenders are, top policy violators, top late filers, if you take action there. So really intuitive analytics and dashboards even around expenses. And the other thing that I wanted to show, any questions on the expenses reporting? Okay, so the next area that I wanted to show was regarding our dashboard and then some of our strategic procurement analytics. So again, in every one of these work areas, even purchase agreements, right? We have infolets and infotiles and all the different work areas. So even things like agreements, you can manage where the status of them. You can see, again, you have access to change the infolets as well, add, subtract, but you have the ability to manage all of your agreements and see what spending is on contract versus off contract. Through supplier qualification, you can manage all of your qualifications and requalifications, making sure that that supplier that's old and reliable is still old and reliable. And you have all these different metrics here to help you gauge that and take actionable insight upon that. And the whole point here is, again, to see something that might be a potential issue and then get ahead of it, be much more proactive instead of reactive. And again, this is all in the same data model. And again, all the contracts within these agreements, especially within contracts, we have DocuSign integration, Microsoft Word integration. You can track different changes, all of those things. And then I quickly want to just show you the analytics are built even within certain processes like our sourcing negotiations. So this is an example of a sourcing program. So think of a sourcing program as a collection of individual sourcing negotiation events that with a goal of tracking savings. Here is an internal IT spend program where they're trying to drive cost saving on internal IT. Well, you'll be able to basically set a plan in motion, and then you can track the plan progress, and then you can end up seeing the results. So in this example, we've saved $70,000 on savings. So the point here is, again, to be proactive, and then you can get much more of your spend on contract, get rid of that maverick spend. You have much more control over what you're buying when you do sourcing and put out these negotiations to multiple vendors. And then here's an example of a completed one. So here is a sourcing agreement negotiation set out for a few laptops. But my point is even within the work area, so to speak, we have tons of analytics here to help you make sure you're making the right decision and being proactive managing your business. And there's automation here. So based upon the supplier qualification rules that we saw through the registration and the other three initiatives, supplier qualification initiatives, and then in the sourcing event, we can auto score. So we can automatically apply scores, and then it can even automatically apply an award to a certain vendor. So all of this stuff, once it's set up, can actually be touchless. That's the other great thing about it. So you don't necessarily have to have a lot of human intervention to save a tremendous amount of money and drive more efficiency in your business. And again, I want to show here that this ended up resulting in a purchase order. It could be a blanket purchase agreement, or a purchase order. But the key takeaway here is this is all the single platform, all shared. So we went from registering a supplier to then creating a sourcing negotiation, getting the best deal on a product. On here, these are the lines for these laptops I needed to order. And then it turned into an actual purchase order. And then as you saw, that invoice could then be PO flipped or scanned through IDR, and then eventually be settled and paid, all on the same platform without back-end integrations needed between them, right? It's all the same data model. So with that, the last thing from reporting I wanted to just touch on quickly is our procurement dashboards. And this is just another example of the dozens and dozens of reports and dashboards that we have pre-delivered to have you get up to speed quickly and hit the ground running and add value quickly. Again, so you don't necessarily have to make these from scratch. We have these reports here, and if there's something that's missing for your needs, it's easy to create or add them. And again, this is covering the entire procurement source to settle suite. So we have graphics, infolets, and reporting on invoicing. We have reporting on procurement and purchase orders. And again, you have a bunch of different visualizations. So again, any way you can visualize a KPI, we can make it essentially happen. And this can track requisitions, agreements, every aspect of the purchasing life cycle we can basically track and help you give reporting analytics on. You can track sourcing events, supplier performance. And again, I know you wanted to know about, yes, you can export to Excel. You can schedule reports if you need to. Again, from those user-based access, maybe you don't want everyone to see this full dashboard. Maybe you only want your buyers to see one of these tabs. You can all configure that to happen. So again, you can have really role-based reporting and analytics in these dashboards as well, not just in that analytics page when I first logged in and showed you when we did the UI tour.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Can any of the users create their own reports, or does it have to be from configured from these dashboards?
So again, no. So the answer to your question is, let me back up. The answer to your question is yes. Users can create their own reports. I think the key here is we provide so many out of the box that what you'll ultimately find is I think users will make copies and then tweak them, if that makes sense. So they won't even necessarily have to make complete reports from scratch. However, if they need to or want to, yes, I mean, users can do that as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt, David.
Yes.
And just to add to that, as a part of our implementation project itself, what we also do is we, like training on specific feature functionalities. We also provide training to users on how to build their own reports. And there's absolutely no coding, if I may say, required in building those reports. Most of it is literally, drag and drop and all of that within subject areas, as we refer to, and that's a part of our project process implementation lifecycle.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I remember the days of even from this is procurement, but even within finance, instead of running certain reports and having to know SQL and stuff. I mean, it's really, like he was saying, drag and drop. It's much more easy to use as far as a user goes when creating reports. So, yep.
So I'm just thinking a little bit on maybe your client base currently in the mining sector or other contracts, construction contract sectors. If we're on a time and material contract and we need the backup for all project costs for invoicing, is that simple enough to just extract for backup purposes to our invoice to our client?
So
I'm actually typing an answer to that right now, but it's if we can have access to the data, then it's no problem at all. So expenses, purchasing activity, based on how the fact that we have these modules available to you in the cloud, that's straight off of the cloud. Now, in order to get because you said time and materials, in order to get the time, right? We're not at this point, we're not talking about capturing time in the Oracle Cloud. My guess would be that time charge is something that would be entered in either JD Edwards or in Sage. So it would be a matter of being able to get to that time information. But certainly we can build reporting that pulls from multiple sources.
Oh, for sure, we get the time elsewhere, but like for the materials side, the backup for the materials, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I flew through some of that reporting. I guess, is there any other questions on reporting? Again, we have dozens of reports, and we have the ability to save them, and you can save favorites, and you can even access them from your favorite screen as well. But again, we have these dashboards here. and to the point we were saying, if there's something that's not quite here, we could make a copy and tweak it, or just create it from scratch. So, but with that, I think that kind of wraps up, the overview, right? So I know we were limited on time here, so I think the idea was to kind of give you an idea of what the walk in the park, so to speak, of all the different work areas. So I think we covered quite a bit today. And again, if there's any other questions, feel free to let me know.
In terms of your payment solution, this one came up with one of our other demos. Is your pay solution compatible with any bank with a lot of banking systems for US, Canada, Australia, Indonesia, Mongolia to facilitate electronic funds transfer?
So I would say the short answer is we can support paying any type of file, right? Any banking type, whether it's overseas in Europe or it's in the United States or Canada. So we port any type of banking file and any type of basically from a localization standpoint, we should be able to meet that as well. So I would say yes. I mean, we could definitely get you specific documents just to back that up too. But again, from a payments perspective, sending cash to the banks, yes, we can support anything.
To add to that, as far as transmission of an electronic payment file is concerned, that's pretty much out of box functionality. And when it comes to major payment formats, like we have NACHA, which is obviously the one used across North America, and then SEPA and others in Europe, all of those, I'll say 90 to 95%, the format is there, and the format is actually 100% there, but we have always seen banks asking for something of their own, right? Even the major banks, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America over here in the US area. So that 5 to 10% is sometimes tweak required within the configuration for bank specific format. But other than that, positive pay, electronic files, all of those, and even like I earlier said, the transmission itself, just the out of box functionality supports that.
Do you want to go to the next couple of slides, Dave?
Sure. It might be a little out of order here because I was planning on doing Hitachi. So you want me to skip through these slides, correct? Because we already covered them.
Yeah, I already did those couple. The last one.
This one?
Yeah. One of the things that we've included when we'll send you over and the PowerPoint from today, as well as the recording, but I wanted to just highlight one particular slide. Dave, if you hover over, we don't have to go into them, but if you just hover over each of the squares, you can see that they're active links for demos that have been pre-recorded. So if you come back and you're interested in saying, I just want to see again a little bit more about dashboard reporting or automated invoice processing, the team put together a list of sort of curated video vignettes that I think are very helpful, and they're all on topic specifically to your business requirements. So I just wanted to highlight that that's in the PowerPoint. And also that if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have a dialogue. We have a couple more sessions coming up, a technical session, and we'd be happy to answer any additional follow-ons. If you have any other questions for today, if you could let us know. Anne or Lisa, anything else that you'd like us to cover?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I'm good for now, thank you. If there's any questions from the team after this call, I'll definitely send it over to you, Phil and Anne, to make sure we have them all covered.
It's Blair. I just a quick question. So obviously JDE Oracle solution, this is an Oracle solution. Is there an initial review of our JDE solution that needs to happen to make this as seamless as possible? Like if we don't have one of the modules turned on, or we don't have certain access to something in our current build of JDE, or we've customized it to the point where it's not even really JDE anymore. Is that a problem?
No, it's not a problem at all. And that's one of the reasons why we've had the Hitachi folks participate with us all the way through, because we really do need to take the conversation to that next level of detail. We've given you sort of the out of the box answer, if you will. Now we have to get to the specificity of your location. You know, we don't know what we don't know about your stage environment, or as you say, even some of the customizations to JD Edwards. So this is where we would have folks like Phil, Mukul, Ajay, the guys that were on the call today, take the conversation to the next level to make sure that we've got those detailed ironed out. I mean, that's all they do for a living, is bring our software to life. And we'd love to have that next level of conversation with you, Blair, to get those details.
So it's not a roadblock or a stop gate. It's
cheap. Not at all.
Okay.
We do that all the time. I have many JD Edwards customers, and we do those reviews all the time to get the additional detail to round out our estimates. So it's not a problem. We do it all the time.
Thank you.
Blair, a couple things I would like to add. This is Mukul. So first of all, no matter how much you have customized, your JD Edwards application, what it has is, quote unquote, an adapter for Oracle Cloud. It's already there, out there. What essentially that does is it lists out all the entry and exit points for, in layman language, I'm trying to translate this. It lays out all those entry exit points along with application validation that JD Edwards may require to plug Cloud's data in. And it goes both ways. So that's what we use to integrate with JD Edwards, with Sage, with any application out there. And what that does is it maintains integrity of the data, right? The sanctity of the data. In addition to that, what we typically do is, as we, if we are fortunate enough to win your business, as a next step, we request for just a few discovery sessions, if I may call, to understand the feature functions within JD Edwards that you use. In those sessions, along with our Oracle Cloud team, we include, since we have the, our JD Edwards practice as well within Hitachi, we bring our team members from JD Edwards also in to make sure we are all up to speed as to what feature functionalities within each module of JD Edwards that you use. And then that's what the information we take forward to, not just to design sessions and the actual implementation, but also to even writing the SOW, just so that everything is, kind of clean and clear. In addition, if our clients request, we have capability of adding JD Edwards resources to the actual project staffing as well. Just so that, sometimes it helps to move things quickly on the project side. So those are some additional key points. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we also have cross-trained resources that have been involved in our JD Edwards practice for years and years. And as some of the JD Edwards activity has slowed down, I have transitioned over to our Oracle practice and are certified in Oracle Cloud implementation. So we also have, the people who can play a dual role, which might be really helpful in this situation.
Anyone else for any other questions? We'd be happy to answer. If there's nothing else, on behalf of the Oracle and Hitachi team. I'd like to thank you very much for your time this morning. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have anything else you'd like us to address. Thanks so much, Anne, for coordinating this morning's presentation. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Ann. Thanks,
you.
Lisa. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.